Good morning, afternoon, good evening, late in the night, wherever you are in the world. This is going to be, by the looks of it, a very wildly populated call. I see already quite a few folks joined, and we're going to have primarily a conversation. We'll try and keep it organized, and it might just be a little bit unwieldy with so many folks, but it's an important day. I'm here with Salome. I'm Jay Harati, for those of you who have not met me, and I'm here with Salome Hoisel, who is on video somewhere. Salome, can you say hi?
Hi, everyone. If I speak, yes, I think you can probably see me. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all here. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Great. And so most of you already know Salome and I are partners in co-managing the TEDx program here at TED. Delighted to have the opportunity to see you all, even though in quite difficult circumstances. Let me take just a minute or two for those of you who have not joined us before on these Hangouts, just for a little bit of housekeeping. Rule number one that you have to remember is please keep your line muted. We want to see you, but we only want to hear you when you're stepping in to speak. Otherwise, we hear a lot of strange noises. It gets quite disorienting. So always keep your line muted. We do have the ability to mute people when we hear a noise like we just heard, but it takes us a minute to find that person. So if you can, if you join, mute your line. The second part is that there is a chat. If you look to your right, there is a chat line there. It's on the right navigation, and you click on the little icon that says chat on it. I see a bunch of you in there already. Please talk to each other continuously throughout this. Feel free. This is a kind of a second conversation that goes on. If you have a question, please type it in all capital letters, in all caps. Express the question. There are folks here, Taylor and Caroline, are monitoring, and when we open it up for questions or comments, let us know if you'd like us to read the question for you. Salome is going to manage that part if you want us to read the question, or if you want to say it on audio, or you want to say it on video. Okay, that will help us. That will help us determine how we do it. So that's in terms of housekeeping. I'm just going to get things started. We have 77 people on the call already. I'm sure more will join. This is a time of great challenge and difficulty for the entire TEDx community, something that started already a few months ago in China and has had great impact on our community there for the first 2 to 3 months, has now become a pandemic and is making its way, well, at least a global phenomena and challenge, and is making its way around the world, impacting all of you. You're all concerned for your health, for the people around you, and you're also thinking about your role as TEDx organizers, to your community, to your organizing team, etc. First thing that we want to say is that we are all thinking first of our duties as people, as friends, as husbands, as wives, as sons, as daughters, as parents, brothers, sisters, co-workers. The first thing we're all thinking about is how to take care of ourselves and how to take care of the people around us who we love. And that's the first thing we should all be doing. And hopefully within the communities that you live, you have ample advice on all the precautions and all the things that you need to take care of yourself for your health and safety and for those around you. But then as TEDx organizers, we also want to make sure that through the work that we do, we don't put anyone at risk. And we also want to kind of find out, once we've done that, what role do we have to help our communities in this difficult time? Can we as community leaders actually not be afraid and depressed and down, but actually think of, is this a time where we can reach out and do something special? And that's kind of what we want to explore today. All of you I know are kind of two-tracking, and this conversation is going to fall in two buckets. First of all, as event organizers, many of us are battling with the logistics of cancellations, postponements, this responsibility to bring people together and to get ideas out there that we already started working on, but this feeling that this is not the best thing to do, and how do we how do we do the right thing and not disappoint and not incur financial difficulties and all that. And we need to talk about that because it's real. And then there is the second portion of once we've made these decisions and maybe our event is not right away and maybe we've figured out to cancel, but we still want to do something. What are some of the opportunities that exist that we didn't think about? That maybe are new things like virtual gatherings of some sort, TED circles that kind of allows people to gather virtually in small groups or in homes where they feel safe with their families, etc. How can we, after they've taken care of their health, how can we take care of their mental state? How can we advance the mission even in a difficult time? I'm already seeing some really interesting ideas going on. We want to start the conversation here, continue it on the TEDx Hub. We only have an hour. We won't get through much. But with that, I just want to open this up to the room and kind of have you share what you've been experiencing. And we're particularly interested, if you have a question, ask the question. If you have an insight and something that you've done that you think is work, we are really interested in best practices, innovations, kind of out of the box thinking. This could be a really special time for that. So that's my intro. We're going to kind of do this interactively. So I'm going to pass this over to Salome, who is going to be receiving the questions from either your questions or your comments or your insights coming from the chat board. And we might be calling on some of you also to answer and give some examples. By the way, we also have made our own decisions here at TED. You've probably heard about them. We should probably not be talking too much about that today, but the main TED conference in Vancouver has been rescheduled to July. If we're unable to do that conference at that time, we will turn it into a virtual conference. We're working on a 2-track right now. TED Fest this year in New York has been canceled, and folks who still wish to get qualified this year, if they have been registered to TED Fest, they have an opportunity to participate virtually in the TED experience and parts of the TED experience, and we will create a remote qualification program. So speaking of an opportunity to do something we've never done before, we've never done remote qualifying, but we're doing it this year for the people who really needed it, and we're planning to come to TED Fest to get it. We're going to figure out how to do it, and that's kind of a new innovation we are excited about. But this is really mostly about your events and your issues. All right. Salome, I'm going to pass this over to you.
Sure. Thanks so much. I see that everyone's already starting to put their questions into the chat. So we will try to get through as many of them as possible. I'm thinking maybe we could start really quickly with just some of the more technical questions you may have around postponing your events, licensing and those types of things, maybe to start with, to get those out of the way. I'm seeing... I think Lokesh maybe asked a question about, is it possible to postpone my event? And if so, how do I do that? Blanket answer for everybody on this call, and let other TEDx organizers know if you see them asking anywhere. Absolutely. If you feel you want to or need to postpone your event, so have it later in the year or cancel or whatever it may be, we are 100% supportive and give you the authority to go ahead and make that decision. All you need to do is send a quick email to TEDx@TED.com to let us know, and we will go ahead and adjust your license, extend your license, whatever it may be, in order to accommodate the changes. So that should be really, really easy and quickly out of the way.
Can I say
yes,
something,
sure.
Please?
Absolutely.
From India. So my question was not about postponing the event. My event is expected on 6th of September. So if my qualifying event happens on 6th of July, I have too little a time to, look for a place and work for 100+. So I've written an email also that, is it possible to have a provisional approval for 100+, subject to me attending the July virtual event?
I think it depends on your situation. If you were registered for TED Fest, or I don't know what your plan was to become 100+, that is a great question for... Sorry, go ahead.
I was supposed to be in TED Fest.
Got it. Yes. So we do have a plan.
Yeah.
So go ahead and email that question to TEDx@TED.com, and we will help
I've already done that. to the conference@TED.
And then
Yes,
you
or
will,
TEDx.
and you will be able. We do have a plan that will allow you to do your event in September and be qualified in time. So you're all set. For everybody who was planning to be in TED Fest in April and planned events for 100 plus accordingly, then we will take care of you. We have a plan in place.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, Norberto, go ahead. I know you had a suggestion.
Thank you. So a couple of things. First of all, a suggestion, something that we realized. We are also probably going to delay our event. We're going to have a team meeting tonight. So this is not official yet, but quite possibly we're going to have to delay our event until September or October. Not exactly sure whether that's the right timing, but it's better than June, I think. Now, we have an idea that we thought we'd like to run through you guys. Maybe you guys will have, can build upon this as well and confirm that if this is okay with you, which is for us to do a quick video, I would say half an hour, where speakers that we were expecting to come within a couple of weeks' time to Porto, we would give them maybe 1 or 2 minutes each, just a quick highlight of their idea, and to keep the momentum going, because I think that's what most of us will fear, is that we have, for us, for example, we've got 95% of the room sold, and we're literally 2 weeks away, and now we're kind of deflating people's expectations about this. So if we could keep the momentum going and put some small videos out there, I would guess in our own YouTube channels. We're not going to put on use the TED uploader for that, and then we would share that with people and keep this going. I'm sure some of us, I would guess maybe all of us, are actually, when we share our speakers with the audience at large, we don't do it all in one go. We do it as we apart from TED obviously, but we do it 2 speakers here, 3 there, so we keep the thing interesting throughout the year. So now perhaps we will have to do the same thing, but with the speakers that we already know of, and get people to be still excited after a few months.
Yeah, so can you clarify for us, when you say speaker videos, you mean sort of just an introduction of who's going to be speaking, or do you mean actual talks that you would record?
No. It wouldn't be a talk, maybe just a 1 minute sharing just a highlight. And then we would keep everything in one video.
Just a tease and a preview.
Yeah.
Like a tease and a preview. I think. Look, I think what you're hitting on. The magic words you used are keep the momentum and keep in touch, right? So one of the things that we're seeing is your community knows what's going on, and they really appreciate if you make any effort. They will understand if you have to postpone or cancel, but they really appreciate if you keep the momentum, you keep in touch. You explain, you let them what's going on. And God forbid, for those of you who have to cancel maybe on shorter notice, even if you go virtual, communicate with them and let them know and do anything instead. We've seen that folks really appreciate it. That's a great idea.
Thank you. Can I just ask one more question, quick question, if that's all right?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Salome, you have already said that if we want to change the dates of our event, we can easily do that easily. Fine, fantastic. I have one question after this, which is, if everything goes well, knock, knock, then if after this delayed event, which will be delayed for about 6 months, then we'd like to go back to doing our event in spring, which is within the next 6 months. For that, we need to have either a quick renewal or maybe an advanced renewal so that we can start working on the next event without, stepping on anyone's toes, for example. Is it something that you guys have thought about?
Yes, and for sure we will work with you to make that happen. If your plan is to come back within 6 months after that, we will work with you on a quick renewal.
We will do our best. There's a lot for everybody to worry about, and we will do our best that you don't have to worry about us. That we are not a source of problems. So you just let us know the unique circumstances of what your situation is. If it's as a result of this, we'll work with you. Sorry, go ahead. Back to you, Salome.
Yeah. So next question, Richard, are you on the line? Do you want to talk about the suggestion you posted?
Yes. So this is Richard. I've done TED circles, and it's a hybrid of face-to-face and people online. And we were meant to be having a salon this evening, which we've cancelled. And obviously we don't know how long this is going to go on. And I'm just wondering if we can do like a hybrid meeting where maybe a few of us get together. It might be a salon format or something. I haven't thought about this in detail, but then have a wider audience online like we've got now, just to like give, because our community is quite distributed in terms of intensity of commitment. And for some people, it's just like it's a small detail that TEDx Kashmir is postponed. For other people who are hardcore fans, they're really disappointed. So this would be more like for our hardcore fans who are ready to join an online meeting. And I wondered if you could, we can experiment with things like that to try and keep unity.
Absolutely, and this is actually something that we are encouraging you to do, to figure out ways to virtually bring your community together. Alyssa, if you're on the line, do you want to quickly talk about kind of the concept of TED Circles and how this may be a way to kind of activate your community during this time, online or in small groups?
Gladly. Yeah, thanks, Salome. Can you hear me okay? Wonderful.
Yes.
All right, so everyone, TED Circles is a platform of volunteer-hosted small groups that are meeting for face-to-face conversations about ideas that are related to a monthly theme. And face-to-face means they can be in person or in video calls. Since Circles started in September of 2019, so about 6 or 7 months ago, we've had over 100 circles gather each month to be curious with one another and connect and really deepen community. And TEDxers, true to form, are hosting many of them and doing it with a lot of creativity. And it's been wonderful to watch you from the sidelines. I'd say that hosts are really loving the simplicity. It's a light lift. And guests are really loving the novelty. But what we are seeing, in addition to what Richard started to allude to with him and Mel doing hybrid circles from the start, is in response to COVID-19, we've had a rise in online circles. You have hosts really responding and being responsive because they want to keep momentum, like you guys were just saying with your TEDx event. They want to keep in touch with their community that they're building. And how they're doing that is by testing out video conferencing tools. And so that way they can send out an invitation with a link and have the opportunity to watch a talk together and then dive into conversation about that talk. I'm seeing online circles last anywhere between 1 hour up to 2.5 hours. And the response is so strong. A lot of guests are sending them emails, thank yous, texts to say, we are craving this sort of in-person conversation, and we may not be able to have it right now because of physical limitations, but at least we're still able to have it. So the TED Circle volunteers are really responding, just as you guys are, to build that sense of community.
And maybe just to clarify for those who've never heard of TED Circles before, we create monthly programming at TED, and then we recommend 4 talks that fall under a monthly theme. And each host chooses 1 talk, and then a group of approximately, on average, 12 people comes together to talk about this talk. We also create a guideline of conversation starters. So as TEDx organizers, if you have a community of, say, 1,000 people, let's say, in your database, you don't have to go and host 100 groups. You actually introduce this to your community. Maybe you ask every one of your team member to become a host, so that you create multiple small groups. You can meet on different days. You can cover different talks. But it's a way with a very low lift, because unlike TEDx, where you do all the work, with TED Circles, we do all the work. We choose the team, we choose the thing, we think of the questions. You gather around and have a conversation. It's going back to Norberto's point about keep momentum, keep in touch, keep connected. That's a really great tool. TEDcircles.com is the URL. Alyssa is the person who knows everything, and she's worked very closely with TEDxers who kind of really deployed that as a tool to augment their event and to be connected in between events. So that's a good start.
Say that you can go there to find information. Email me at tedcircles@ted.com. In response to help people feel more comfortable hosting online circles, I'm also hosting 4 online circles every month. So that way you could attend one before you considered hosting one. So think of that as an option too, to check it out first.
Back to you, Salome.
So I'm just seeing lots of questions in regard to do you need a separate license for TED Circles? So Alyssa, you want to speak really, really quickly to kind of just how do you apply here?
Gladly. It's a very quick registration form. It is not an application. It is about 10 questions. I want to know your name and how you're going to host it. And then I get back to you within the day with quick steps to get started. It's a very simple registration.
Wonderful. Thank you. Moving on, Emmanuel from TEDx Yaba, I'm seeing a question about you wanting to hold a virtual event and some questions around that. If you can speak, go ahead and tell us your question.
Thanks, Salome. So I guess the question is, we're considering either going completely virtual or a mix of virtual and in person. So the last report we got from a venue in Lagos was they can only do a maximum of 100 attendees, just as a precaution. So a part of us is thinking, if we have to host like speakers virtually, how flexible are the rules in terms of being able to post their videos on the TEDx YouTube channel without the TEDx Yaba signage in the background, in case we have to host a completely virtual event, or in case we have to host speakers that are located elsewhere. I think that's the question.
Sure. So just to get a little some more details here, when you say a virtual event, do you mean someone recorded in a studio, or do you mean more like this forum on a kind of virtual interactive? What exactly what do you mean by virtual event?
So I think it could be either of the two. So it could be pre-recorded, or it could be a virtual platform that's more webinar-like than a conversation like this.
More like pre-recorded, yeah. So yes, we will work with you. As Jay said, during this time, we're kind of making lots of exceptions to make it possible for your communities to kind of gather virtually and have an experience that they can do from their homes or in smaller groups. So for sure, go ahead and do the virtual kind of in-studio recordings or what it is that you're planning, and we will review with you the videos afterwards, and we do upload them to the channel, even if there's no signage in the background, as long as other TEDx guidelines are still being respected in terms of content and kind of sound science and those types of things. Even if it is a direct-to-camera recording, we'll work with you to get that talk up.
And then Emmanuel, I would just jump in and say, we know how creative TEDx organizers are, and you might not have a stage, and so you're not going to put the letters, but there's probably other things you could do right around him. What you're going to have behind them is background, what you might put as graphics on the screen. We also have to be careful about that, but you're just kind of thinking about maybe somehow brand the background, even if they're sitting at home, send them something that they can put that might feel elegant, not too cheesy, not too overwhelming, but a little bit something. Your imagination is a pretty good one. If you're not sure, you can also send us an email.
And then I'm seeing related questions here from Irene and from Harry. One is, can we hold an event without an audience and just essentially stage talks on the stage and film them? Answer is yes, absolutely you can. And Harry's question, can we pre-record talks? I believe the same one we just answered. Yes, you can. And we'll work with you to get them up on the channel, even if they're kind of in a pre-recorded setting or studio. Moving on to another question here. There
are a lot of questions.
I believe it's lots of questions, yeah. How can we, I think we're going to go to a partner questions. Jan or Jan, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, if you're on, you had a question about partners. Can you go ahead and tell us your question?
Sure. How do we keep our partners happy if they are not meeting our delegates face to face? That's one of the main reasons why some of our sponsors have actually sponsored or partnered with us.
Yeah, I'd love to hear kind of from the room what you guys are doing, other people are doing with partners who I'm sure are knocking on your door right now saying, we thought we'd signed up for an in-person event and now either this event's no longer happening or it's moving online. We're all in this reality together. And first of all, I'm sure partners are also reading the news and aware of what's going on and understanding that this is kind of an unprecedented moment. But some ideas are the ones I think that we've already floated here. Is there a world in which you can create talks that are either without an audience or kind of studio talks that are still TEDx talks, and move your partners to, instead of having an in-person engagement, kind of having them be on the talk. So there are rules around how you can attach a sponsor to your videos that are going to end up on YouTube, and see if you can kind of reposition that engagement. Does anyone else in the room have ideas about partner conversations that you've had moving from in-person engagements to online engagements?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. So is the question about having an online platform on any media? Is this the question?
No, I believe the question is partners that are currently signed on for your in-person event, sponsors that are currently signed on for your in-person event. Once your in-person event gets canceled and you're looking to maybe do something more virtual, how can you convince a partner to kind of come with you on the virtual journey? What are some of the benefits that they could find if it's no longer an in-person event? If anyone on the call has had kind of successful conversations around this, please let us know.
And I'm going to jump in here. Make one suggestion that if you do have tips and ideas and you've done it, you can also type it into the chat if it's hard to speak. One thing I heard about Salome, and I actually heard it from Bruno, this was about a film festival that he managed, he was working on, and they immediately switched it into virtual, but still gave prominence to the partners there. And he said none of the partners have complained. In fact, nobody called and asked for their money. They still got the exposure. One other idea, which I'm just thinking about, is you could do virtual salons, like Richard's mentioned, and maybe take some of the partners who were at your event and kind of give them some exposure to that. That could be it. And similarly, there's a lot of very clear rules about how you engage your partners. But if you are doing something that's a little bit out of the box, and it's because you are trying to offset a commitment you've made during the event and that you had to cancel, email us, let us know, and we will show flexibility so that you can do that.
Seeing someone responding here, Vatsal with a suggestion for partners as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my suggestion is simple, that we can feature the partners in the 60-second video preview that was talked about earlier. That can be put up on the social media. I know this might not be compliant with the social media guidelines, but right now there is very little flexibility that we have regarding those things.
Great. Yeah. So an idea around kind of what came up earlier, making a media asset for social media and attaching sponsors to it. That's a great idea as well. I've seen a couple of questions here around seeking advice from us as to whether or not you should cancel your event. Someone asked earlier in the feed that their event's happening sometime in April in France, and they're insecure about having speakers come from the States or in general to hold their event. I think, Dave, Troy, you're on. Do you want to give some advice on people who are still people who are still on the fence about whether or not to hold their events? As for TED, again, we strongly suggest that if you don't feel it's safe, that you decide to cancel or postpone if you can. We do not want to put people into kind of unsafe spaces. So that's definitely what we're suggesting from here. But Dave, Troy, if you're on and have a point of view on this, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I've been studying this pretty closely, and of course we have an event that was scheduled to go on April 18th here in Maryland. I ended up writing a blog post about this, which I'll post a link to in the chat, that has itself gone viral, ironically, that now has like 300,000 views. But at any rate, as a result of just studying this for the last few days and talking to a lot of people about it, my advice would be to seriously consider rescheduling your event, unless it's just in the next couple of days, in which case you might be able to still have it. But I would say that from my perspective, it looks like March, April, and May are going to be extremely challenging times in most of the world. And so if you have events scheduled in those 3 months, you're going to want to seriously consider rescheduling. You may not need to reschedule your event yet, if it's like in May or something. But I imagine that most of you are seeing what we saw, which is that ticket sales are tending to slow down because people are concerned about this. Sponsors are getting cold feet, and speakers don't want to travel, and that sort of thing. So, keep in touch with your local health organizations, watch the stats, see how things develop. But I can tell you that here in the Baltimore, Washington area, people are starting to become very concerned about this. And, I think that the tone that we want to set is, preparation over panic. Panic isn't going to help anybody. And, indeed, I don't think there is the need for panic, but we do need to take this seriously. We are going to be in a similar position to where Italy is in a couple of weeks if we do not start taking serious interventions here. My concern is we will be where Italy is in a couple of weeks. And, it's important to remember that just 2 weeks ago, Italy, only had like 3 cases. So you can see how quickly you go from 3 cases to shutting down an entire country. And again, not to raise unnecessary alarm, but just to take this very seriously. And you want to the health of everybody involved in your community into, first and foremost consideration.
Thank you, Dave. And that's a really good approach. I would just really like to double down on what Salome said. When in doubt, if you're not sure, if you're on the fence, err on the side of caution. We can't tell you. There's so many communities, there's so many different circumstances. But if you are thinking, what should I do? That means you should probably be cautious. It's people's health and lives are on the line. We will find ways of other things to do. We will keep momentum. We will come back. Now, question is, I saw another question on here. Should we just wait for the whole thing to be over? Here's what we're doing at TED. We canceled the conference in April and we rescheduled it to July because we're just optimistic. We can't help it. Now, it is possible. We know that it's possible that July might still not be a good time to do that. And so we are choosing to both be optimistic, move forward, but be cautious. And so we are planning 2 conferences, one physical and one virtual. And I actually have a question to all of you. We need your brains on this, and I think we all need our brains together. What is an exciting virtual conference? Like, I was on the call yesterday with YouTube, and we know that simply doing live streaming is not super fun. But we're looking for really creative ideas around virtual conferencing. At TED, we're trying to brainstorm whatever we learn, whatever we hear, we're going to share with all of you, because this might happen just in spring, but who knows? So if you have any ideas, type them up here or go to the TEDx Hub and write down your ideas. If you're testing and experimenting, let us know. I'd love to hear. And if anybody feels like they got something to say, type up some caps. We'll call on you. But other than that, I'm just kind of putting that out as an open question to the group on virtual ideas.
I think next, let's go to Chris from TEDx Nashville. If you have audio, please go ahead. I know you've had a recent experience that is relevant to share.
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I just wasn't sure. I know people have been having technical problems. So we did just postpone our event for March 21st. And one thing I wanted to mention, and I think everybody could actually do this, but with us, we had a bad storm with some tornadoes that killed some people. And so we put together a fundraiser. Hang on one second, let me mute something. We put together a fundraiser for the community that we are going out using an Amazon wish list to bring in products to give to the victims. And our sponsors got very excited about this. actually almost like this more than they like, they worried about the event being postponed. And so the association with that effort gave us a lot of goodwill with them in the postponement of our event, which we're now looking to move to May 17. So I just wanted to mention that because probably every TEDx organization can find something in the community, maybe it's related to the virus, to do some kind of effort around that you can do virtually, like using an Amazon wish list to help people out. And then you can utilize your email list or whatever tools that you have to reach out. You include the sponsors in supporting this effort, and I know our partners really appreciated that.
I love that, Chris. I actually just want to comment on this. I got an email last night from Citibank, which is my personal checking account is at Citibank. And as a company, they sent an email saying, as we want to tell all our customers, if you've been impacted by the virus, we will be just let us know. We will waive the monthly checking account fee, and we will let you break your certificate of deposits account if you need to get in there early. We will let you do it without penalty. And I was like, wow, this is when businesses step in and do something special. This kind of feels really good. So talk to your partners. This is a great idea. Talk to your partners and go, at this time of crisis, let's do something special. Let us know what you're thinking about, how you can step in and help. And we will push that out to our community, and they will help get the word out. So you're both helping the community, and you're building some goodwill to the partner. It's a great idea.
Can I jump in as well? Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Go
you.
ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Vivian from TEDx Singapore. So I think I mentioned it on Facebook as well. So what we did was there was actually a salon that was scheduled, but we had to postpone. So for us at Singapore, we felt the effects of the virus slightly a bit earlier than the Western parts. So for us, what we did was we actually checked in with our partners and ran a collection drive to issue out, hygiene awareness campaign and collection drive for our community to donate items to be given out to vulnerable communities within Singapore. So that was something that we solved, like the partner issue as well. We used the partner's premise, location, to do the drop-off. So community members would go in over a two-week period to drop off items, and then our volunteers actually came in after 2 weeks to consolidate and then distribute it. So it engages the community, it engages our attendees, and even some of our ex-speakers came aboard to help us as well, and then creating more conversation. So it's we minimize, of course, all the physical contact by running a 2-week drive, and then our partners liked it as well. It's like what Jay mentioned, and then through that we could also reach out to more partners that perhaps were looking at this story and who wanted to help as well. So that's also another suggestion that to echo what Chris was saying, maybe work with partners to see if there's anything that you can do that contributes to this community during this period. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Vivian. Great ideas, specifically on the partner front as well. Kat Haber, I know you had some experience with maybe virtual conference and some platforms you've used in the past. If you are on and have audio, can you share your past experience? Kat? Have we lost you? Okay, Kat, maybe we can't hear you right now. When you're troubleshooting, we'll come back to you. Emmanuel, on the same topic regarding virtual conferences and summits, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I was just following up on Jay's comment about platforms. I mean, I'm a PMI member, so I do virtual webinars every now and then, but that's not the exciting part. PMI does Project Management Institute. They do virtual summits that actually have virtual waiting rooms, that have partner sections, that have partner booths that you can go into different rooms and things like that. I think it's really interesting, and it's something that you should probably check out. I don't know what the platform is built from, but it seems custom built to me. So I don't know, but it's probably something worth exploring. But for our team, we are exploring a platform called A Summit. I just shared the link on the chat. It basically gives you all the tool to host a completely virtual summit, from like the registration process to onboarding speakers, like displaying all the sessions and like some marketing tools and things like that. We haven't completely decided that that's all we're going to use, but I'm almost confident that we would at least try it out, just because of like the various reasons that we talked about.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I see you posted that in the chat, right? I have some kind of comments of folks who are on here who don't have audio. TEDx Sydney and TEDx Teen both featured incredible live streams of their last events. So, one idea could be to kind of have an event and not an in-person audience, but have your speakers still go on and instead encourage your audience to watch from home on a live stream experience. And both of these events have kind of advice on how to do that well. And also, TEDx Vienna has a YouTube channel with some fantastic examples of 360-degree kind of videos that they filmed as part of their not so traditional videos, which we encourage you to look at if you are considering doing a studio type recordings for your speakers as opposed to stage recordings.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, hi. My name is Jack. I am currently living in Shenzhen, China. I'm a high schooler, and I have limited resources with everything I'm trying to do, and I literally can't leave my room. I've been staying in my room for the past 14 days, and it sucks. Anyhow, the problem is I cannot hold the event in a place outside of my house. So I have to hold the event inside this room. My question is, will the level of formality affect whether or not TED will accept the videos created in my house?
It's sorry, I know I don't know if Salome has an answer to this, but I'm going to. Sometimes I give answers and I get into trouble for giving these answers. I'm gonna say this. First of all, I'm glad you're here with us. I'm glad we can be there with you. This is really the power of connecting virtually, that if you're confined to a room in your college, and I know, for example, like I have an aunt who lives in Milan. She's in senior living housing, and she has been locked in a room for 3 weeks and not been able to go out. It can be really isolating, so we try to make video calls all the time. Video is a great relief for this. If you're able to create a TEDx event from your high school room, college or dorm room, then I think it will be a first of its kind. And we're really interested to see what you can create. And, even if you're not able to produce high level, production value, we will put a notice at the beginning of the video saying this was created during this time, out of this thing. Don't pay attention to production value, or pay attention to the content and to the spirit. So go ahead and do it, and we will find a way. If you've got a good idea, as Salome said at the beginning, what we really care about at this time, adhere to the content guideline. Good ideas, credible speakers, well thought through, scientifically documented, etc. If you're doing that, kind of doesn't matter. You have a great closet, nice baseball caps, a good picture behind you. That's a great setting for an idea worth spreading.
All right, thank you so much.
Back to you,
Thanks for
Salome.
your question. Sure. I'm seeing some questions here about direct-to-camera talks. Yes, direct-to-camera talks are absolutely allowed during this time, so we encourage you to experiment with those. Next, I think Paul is on the line and had some suggestions about maybe you've had experiences with virtual events before and have some advice for the group. Paul, if you have audio, please go ahead.
Hi. Look, we in our other life train people virtually all the time, and what we find is that probably the it tops out about 2.5 hours. You go much beyond that, you're losing people. It is very hard to actually keep your audience involved. As an example, last year I ran a satellite for TEDx Sydney just to see how it went. And again, that was a full day's event. It was really well done, but and they had a kind of a host hosting the material between presenters. But it was such a hell of a long day, and I don't know. I would recommend to others that you're going to have to break it up and use some restraint there.
Paul, I wanted to thank you for this comment because I called up our friends at YouTube yesterday because I wanted to brainstorm exactly on kind of what is their experience with live streaming and virtual events. And they said what you said, but they actually said that they see people starting to drop after 45 minutes. So when they're looking at their metrics, so I think this is really great advice. If you're thinking of a program, you might want to break it down into smaller chunks. So if 45 minutes is the sweet. By the way, we are here on this call for an hour. It's actually quite engaging for 1 hour. But if I kept you for another 30, many of you will drop off. So I think kind of keep it an hour and maybe you take a break and maybe people come back. Another thing that I heard yesterday was that if you look at video gaming platforms like Twitch, where people come in and they stay on for hours and hours and hours, it's because of gamification. If you introduce any element of a game, then you are going to keep people longer. You might give them a reason to, they just came for the first session of 1 hour, they might come back an hour later if you created some kind of a game that they're playing throughout the day. I don't know what that idea is, but I know if you've got imagination, if you have any ideas around games, around the content or ideas, etc., make that remote, people will come back. And I haven't figured that out yet, but it reminded me based on what Paul said.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Love to move now to Juan from China, who has been kind of spending her time indoors in the last couple of months due to the current circumstances and has some insight about virtual gatherings, which have been taking off in China during this time. Juan, are you there? Can we hear you? Go ahead and share your experience. Okay, it looks like she may have dropped off. We'll go back to you if you come back, Juan. Yusuke from TEDx Tokyo, go ahead.
Yep. So I have some questions about the what did I write? Sorry. Actually, if we have the online conference and main TED having some event with the TED World Theater, right? And my idea is I believe after the main TEDx talk and the interaction with the speaker and the participant is so important as well. So my question is, can we have the interactive session with the participant and the speaker after the official talk? Basically, at this moment, the main TEDx rule prohibited that, but
Yeah. So I think the question was, during this time, if we do a virtual event, are we allowed to do a kind of Q&A, question and answer with the speaker following their talk, the same way that some of you may have seen we do at TED in the TED World Theater sometimes? And the answer is yes. Absolutely agree, Yusuke, that a virtual event has different needs than an in-person event. And kind of like Jay was saying, in order to make it more of an interaction and almost gamification, you're going to need to do some things that you're usually not doing at your TEDx event. when it is a live event. So yes, we encourage you to kind of be creative and figure out different ways to keep your audience engaged when they're virtual. And that may include things like giving them the chance to ask questions and engaging with the speaker in some other way after they've given their talk. So answer is yes, absolutely.
Great, thanks.
Okay, let's see here.
Can I give this?
Go ahead, Kim.
Hi. So Yusuke, about your live interaction with your friends. So I really like Twitch because I watch Twitch a lot, and I'm not sure if you guys may know about this, but do you guys know Bear Grylls, the Discovery Channel? So he created this YouTube channel, and it's very interesting. The way it works is that he gives you 2 suggestions, and it is a live interaction. If you click on one side, it leads you to different scenarios. I thought that would be interesting to incorporate in the Twitch system, because that's one of the best things you can do on Twitch. Is you can have a live voting system with your friends that is watching online, and if the question is for say Section A and Section B, you can make them vote on it, and then the speaker can adjust according to this voting system that they put online at that moment. And that can be a new way of interacting, I think, and I think that may be very interesting in a sense. So I don't know about you guys, but that was what I was going off of, and I think that is where I will be going.
Well, you know what? Then I would say, please go this way. And if you are a user of Twitch already, your brain is already halfway there. Please innovate, try things out, and send me an email if something worked, because I'm really curious to see it. Sometimes people say that because of a crisis, you suddenly discover new things that maybe will come in handy afterwards. So innovate, try things out, let us know. Thank you for doing that. Salome, back to you.
Sure. I'm seeing a couple of questions on the thread about TEDx Live. So yes, we're aware there will be some changes to TEDx Live, given that TED 2020 is no longer happening in April, but moving to July. So for those of you who are signed up for a TEDx Live event, we will be in touch with you shortly on next steps that you should hear from us in the next day or two about what to do with your license. Okay, moving on next to Yassine. Go ahead, I think you had a comment.
About the idea that our friend said from China, we can use it on the TED conference, the virtual conference of TED, as the activities, and not just to be just live to be watch it. Just it. Thanks.
Sorry, is your question if we would allow for people to watch the TED 2020 conference, or can you repeat your question? I'm not sure I understood.
No, I'm not giving a question. I'm just suggesting about the virtual TED conference that will be held after. That maybe we can use the idea of our friend, the one from China, about the 2 sections and the live voting. We can use it on the TED virtual
conference. Yeah. Well, Yassine, this is exactly why I was so excited about his idea. We are keeping our ears open, and we're looking to innovate for the TED conference in July. But I also know that the innovations are not just going to come from us; they're also going to come from you, which is why I was so excited about the idea I heard. But yes, we'll be doing our best to get there, and if you inspire us, we will look in return to inspire you.
If we had different ideas, can we email them for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Taylor is going to type for you the email that you can send it to on the email. I'm going to ask my team to create a section on the TEDx Hub specifically, if we can, to ideas about virtual conferencing. I think it's an interesting enough concept for the next few weeks, but maybe it comes in handy in the future too. So let's all learn from each other. Salome, back to you.
Sure. I'm seeing a number of questions here on the chat about kind of TED Fest and can you still sign up for TED Fest? And I think for now the answer is TED Fest has been canceled as of yesterday. So we're not signing anyone up at this time. Kind of working through figuring out next steps here for the people who are already signed up. Have received an email yesterday with some options. And so that's the answer on that. But I think it looks like we're coming to the end of our time. So Jay, if you want to go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah. Well, an hour, as you can see online, is still engaging. I feel like we could go longer, but we want to keep it while we're still on top. I think I did a really good job when I said I'll do the intro and I'll do the end. And Salome, you organized the questions because that was really difficult. There were so many questions coming in. Thank you, Salome, for navigating that really confusing and rich and productive chat board. What we're going to do next is we are going to capture this on video. We are also a few of you have asked to that if we can capture all the chat because you gave many good ideas with links. So our community team, Taylor and Caroline, that are online, they're going to find a way to share that back with you. Please encourage other TEDx organizers to listen to this call, and please encourage everybody to continue the conversation. We are going to keep monitoring what's going on. We'll come back to you as needed. This is the beginning of a conversation. We will continue to have it until we can resume kind of normal life again. To our friends all over the world, those in China who've been doing this for quite a while now, and everybody who's beginning now to experience this, we're here with you. This is time where we are connected, and we're all here to support each other. We can support you, but more than anything, you can also support each other, as you've just seen on this call. So with that, I'd say thank you to all of you for joining. I'm sorry, I know that some of you had difficulties joining in because we, at some points during this call, we hit the capacity. So something to know about when you're doing a virtual conference, know exactly how many people can log in comfortably. And I apologize if you couldn't see or speak, join remotely on video on the recorded section and take it in that way. And with that, I will say goodbye, good night, good day, good afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
It was very useful. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Everybody.
Bye. Thank you.